Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, it is Wingy here and welcome to a brand new video. So for those of you who don't know, I have a Patreon account. I did mention it in that little thing before the video started. And if you do support me on there, then what I am doing is I'm letting you guys suggest video ideas for me. So anyone who is a patron of mine, if you suggest me a video, then I will do it as a thank you for you supporting me on Patreon. So if you want to suggest a video for me to do in the future, then I will only be accepting Patreon responses because obviously they have given me money. The link to my Patreon is in the description, which brings me to the point that today's video, well, technically is suggested by Charles Pickup, who basically said anything Torchwood related, and I thought since I did the Sarah Jane video the other day, I would do the same thing but for Torchwood. So here are 5 of my favourite Torchwood stories / episodes or whatever you want to call it. These aren't necessarily the best and they're not in order, they're just some of my personal favourites. So first of all, an episode that I want to talk about is the 3rd episode of series 1, which is called Ghost Machine. Now I really like this episode because it is sort of like a cold case mystery type thing, but it also has some alien interference. Basically they find this machine where it takes you back to a moment in the past, and what Owen discovers is that the moment that he's been taken back to, he witnesses a young girl's murder. So Owen is just obsessed with this Ed Morgan, the guy who he saw in the past. The main thing that I like about this is it is sort of like a simple mystery but with alien interference as well, and I think it handles it really well. There's some really chilling moments in this, like when you hear the guy sort of call to the woman in the past. It's really creepy and you can buy the fact that this dude is about to kill her. It also shows you the future as well, and it shows where someone is going to get murdered. So not only are they trying to solve a murder from the past, they're trying to prevent one in the future. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. You know the drill. But considering this was so early on in Torchwood's run, it's a really enjoyable episode. Plus, it's also notable because one of the guest stars in this is Gareth Thomas, who you may be familiar with as Blake from Blake 7. And I think the guy who plays Morgus in Caves of Androzani is in this one as well. That's cool. Next is an episode from series 2 called A Day in the Death. So basically at this stage of series 2, Owen was killed, but he's still alive. He's sort of like the reverse of Captain Jack, you know, he can die but he'll just live forever. Owen has the luxury of being dead forever. And this episode sort of details Owen and what he's been doing since he's died but hasn't. It explores Owen as a character and really adds to him as well as his arc. The way that this episode is set up as well is Owen talking to someone who is about to commit suicide, and it's a really effective way to narrate this story. You see Owen really struggle with it, and it is really sort of heartbreaking yet so enjoyable at the same time to watch. Not only Owen though, it's interesting to see how all the other characters around him have reacted to this, in particular Tosh, who throughout the series has sort of had a thing for Owen and it's not really been a secret, but in this episode it really kind of blows up in her face, not because of anything that she's done, but just because of where Owen is in his life, or lack of life. Whichever. Now I hope I've remembered it rightly, but I do think that this has the bit where Owen is running across the pier in Cardiff Bay and jumps into the ocean. If it is this episode, then that's my favourite moment. I can't remember if it's this one or the next one or the one before it. But even so, it's a great moment in a great episode. Next is, I think, arguably one of the most grim out of all the Torchwood episodes, which is Countryside. So this came sort of part way through series 1. This episode sees the Torchwood team going on a little bit of a camping trip, and there's some strange goings on, and obviously their first initial thought is, yep, aliens. But throughout this episode there's this real unnerving sense. None of the characters really fully understand what's going on. All throughout the episode they're trying to figure out, well, what sort of alien would do this? This is weird behaviour. Turns out it's got nothing to do with aliens, it's just a bunch of cannibals living in the countryside. You see different body bits in this fridge and all scattered around in this basement, and that one dude is so creepy where they ask him stuff like, well, why are you doing this? And he just replies in the most menacing way, because it makes me happy. Definitely up there as one of the darkest Torchwood episodes. It's so good, and the tension in this and the atmosphere really adds to it. I like the fact that it subverts your expectations. You know, you're really expecting this to be some real savage alien when in fact it's got nothing to do with that. It's just some really horrible people. And of course this episode inspired the "here he comes on his bloody great tractor" thing, which does kind of ruin the episode for you. If you don't know what I'm on about, type in on YouTube Torchwood "here he comes on his bloody great tractor" and you'll see what I mean. It's funny and I like it, but but it does kind of ruin this episode, so watch it at your own risk if you haven't already. The penultimate episode that I'm going to talk about in this video is called Fragments, and this is also the penultimate episode of Series 2. Basically, at the start of this episode, they all sort of get caught, or is that the end of the last one? Either way, at some point recently, the Torchwood crew get trapped in this warehouse. They're all stuck in various positions, and it's kind of like a flashback episode, but not like showing you the best bits throughout the series. This is showing you their history and showing them get into Torchwood, what made them want to do it. And it really adds a lot of character depth to a lot of people. Gwen, we sort of already know about her anyway. I mean, Jack is probably the most familiar character to anyone who watches Torchwood anyway, but you still get more depth with him. But I think Toshiko in particular, she really gets a lot of depth here, and it is so good to see. Tosh for me was always the character that was there, was alright, but was just not that interesting. She was just sort of the stereotype of the nerdy smart one who was after a guy that was out of her league or thought she was out of her league. But no. She's actually got a pretty dark backstory. This does this for all of the Torchwood crew as well, and even though it is a much slower paced episode, there isn't as much action in it. It's character pieces like this that I really enjoy, and it's some of Torchwood's strengths. And I don't think there are too many episodes that explore their characters in such a short space of time as well as Torchwood did in Fragments. And then last but not least, now this is technically 5 episodes, but I'm going to talk about it as a whole, and it's Children of Earth. I couldn't not do a Torchwood video without talking about Children of Earth. I remember when this came out, this was broadcast from Monday to Friday each part, each evening, and my god, this was like event television. You had to sit down and watch this. This not only has the best Torchwood story, but it also has the best cast as well. Basically, an invasion is coming and something is going wrong with the children. It's sort of like a slow invasion, because usually when an invasion story happens in a Doctor Who or a Torchwood or a Sarah Jane Adventures, it's already happened by the time Torchwood, Sarah Jane or the Doctor arrive. But in this case, you see it happen, and it's like, well, what do they want with the children? Turns out children are like a drug for this creature, or as they put it, the hit. It's a really interesting motive for an alien, not just to take over, not just to kill or to have them as food, but to use them as drugs. They're not even important, it's just because they're addicted. The 4, 5, 6 are a really, really menacing villain. You don't even see them properly. You just sort of see them in this like fogged out cage. Plus, the way that the government acts in this, I can fully believe that is 100% what they would do. They would happily give up X amount of children to these aliens. Of course they would. They just want to save their own skin. Jack as well in this. It's the most interesting I think we've ever seen Jack. You see him in a totally different light as well. Like, obviously Captain Jack has had some dark moments, but I don't think he's done anything as dark than what he did in Children of Earth, which is kill his own grandson. I mean, obviously it's not something that Captain Jack willingly did and wanted to do, but he thought, one child and all these children that were going to die anyway, I'll make the sacrifice. It's a questionable decision, but you can understand where he's coming from. But I cannot talk about Children of Earth without talking about Peter Capaldi. Now this is why I say Capaldi is up there as one of my favourite Doctors. The acting ability from this guy is incredible. Don't get me wrong, I love him as Malcolm Tucker, I love him as the Doctor, but in this he conveys so much. Throughout each of the 5 parts, you just see the burden of dealing with this situation just gradually weigh him down. He's just some low-level civil servant that is just trying to please the Prime Minister, and he gets no thanks. In fact, he gets shit thrown at him for it. And towards the end, when you see him go into that room and you think, yeah, I know exactly what he's going to do here, and I don't blame him. And I think hearing those gunshots from him and his family is some of the saddest stuff I think I've ever seen in any of the Doctor Who related shows, including Doctor Who itself. So, well done, Capaldi. So, they are just 5 of my favourite Torchwood episodes. Thank you again for Charles Pickup for suggesting me to do a Torchwood video, and thank you again for donating on Patreon. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what are some of your favourite Torchwood episodes? Obviously, I only mentioned 5 on here, and I know that technically Children of Earth is 5 episodes, but I didn't want to do part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There are plenty more that I like, and no, Day 1 was never going to be on here. But yeah, whatever you think, just let me know. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more, and if you do any of those things, I would love you forever. But until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye. With you all the way. How can he send for reinforcements? He has no power on Gallifrey.